Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at why Kaspa on Rust, or at least the Kaspa Rust update, is probably one of the best things for ASIC miners and the decentralization of the Kaspa network. We're going to kind of compare it to Bitcoin and see how it plays out in terms of how much more decentralized the Kaspa network could be compared to Bitcoin when it's in the height of its mining. So we know that it's an ever growing thing, but there is going to be substantially more hash rate hitting the network over the next couple of years if Kaspa continues onwards. So this Rust rewrite, I'm going to explain today kind of why it's good for miners and why it's good for the decentralization of the network. So obviously we have the blocks per second going from 1 block per second over to 10 blocks per second at the current time. There are obviously plans to bring it to 32 blocks or 100 blocks per second. And this is great for miners because it is actually going to lower the threshold for how much hash rate you need to solo mine one block. For example, what we see here, you have obviously Kaspa pools right here. At the bottom it shows the distribution here. So we have all the pools, and then in the unknown is 65%. I know if we scroll to the top, F2 pool is not included in that, I believe. If we look here, there's no F2 pool. That'll take up around half of what we see here. So it basically means that half of the unknown could be from people running their own nodes and mining to those nodes. Generally, that's what we'd assume, just because there's no other pools that would be that big enough and would probably be discovered by now. So we have around 30% or 35% of the network that is actually solo mining to their own node. Obviously, that's a broad guess, so we don't really know actually what it is because it is unknown. But that's just kind of my feeling on how much it is decentralized. So normally you would have, if we go down to Bitcoin's one, the unknown only makes up 0.8%. So that means that only 0.8% are running their own node and mine into that node. That's obviously because the difficulty is way higher on Bitcoin. And that's kind of what this Rust update is going to fix, is this centralization into pools, because once those 10 blocks per second come online, we're going to have a reduction in the block reward by a factor of 10, and even if it goes up to 100, then we'll have a reduction by a factor of 100, which basically means that it would take less hash rate to actually mine a block solo, and in turn that would open it up so that a lot of people could get into mining Kaspa coin and hit solo blocks viably without having to use a pool themselves. So it's a very easy concept to understand how that happens. We see Bitcoin here, as I said, the unknown is 0.8%. Kaspa's unknown, we're going to go with around 35% to 30% are people solo mining to their own node. However, this is obviously going to change as time goes on. There might be more pool allocation. People might start mining on pools if this Rust update doesn't come in the time that we're seeing it. So if the Rust update never happened and they stayed on 1 blocks per second, I think we'd see a convergence into this kind of chart that we're seeing here. Just because the difficulty would get higher, you'd need more hash rate. But this is one of the main things that I think is going to allow miners to be more decentralized, is this 10 blocks per second or 100 blocks per second. So I'm going to explain it very simply now. So this is the hash rate for the latest Bitmain ASIC. It says here, on average, you'll find 2 blocks every day. So that basically means you'll find 2 blocks within the day. I know it's not accurate to the day, but it still gives a rough estimation. When that goes to 10 blocks per second, you basically times this number by 2. So current network, if it switched today onto Rust, it means you'd find 20 blocks every day. However, that is for the most powerful machine. But if you go down here, let's just take the KS2, for example. Let's click in here. So we have the KS2 here. It's at 2 terahash. So the previous one that we looked at was at 21 terahash. And if we do the calculations here, so at 2 terahash, it doesn't really matter about the watts, you can find 1 block every 4 days. So that kind of tracks on how much you can find with the latest Bitmain miner, because that's a factor of 10 more than what we see on the KS2. So even with this small machine, smaller hash rate, you can see that we can still find blocks, 1 block every 4 days. So if the Rust update came in today, it would mean that we'd have to divide this figure by 10 because it would be 10 blocks per second, which would mean that you'd find a block every 0.4 days. So around, I don't know, I'd say 10 hours. So a block every 10 hours, which would mean that it would be maybe 2 blocks a day on the network, and this is with a lower amount of hash rate. So this is why it can be more decentralized, is because it requires a lower amount of hash rate to solo mine, and that's mainly why pools are facilitated, is because people can't solo mine because the hash rate is too high. So the Rust update will actually fix this quite a lot, and once it goes to 100 blocks per second, that will also lower the threshold for solo mining. And then let's take a KS0, so we have 100 gigahash. This would mean that we'd find 1 block every 89 days. So at 100 gigahash, we'd find 1 block every 89 days. If it switched over to the Rust rewrite today, we would find 1 block every 8.9 days. So let's just say 9 days it would take to find 1 block. If it went over to 100 blocks per second today, it'd be 0.89 days. So let's just round that up to around 20 hours, I'd say. That's how long it would take to find one on the KS0. That's only at 100 gigahash, and I know you can overclock them to get more, but you can see how it really, really lowers the threshold for solo mining. It also happens to be that you can set up Kaspa nodes very easily. I have a video on my channel. I'm sure I'll link it in the description if you want to actually set up your own Kaspa node, and in the video it shows you how to mine to that Kaspa node as well. So with that being said, obviously going forward we're going to have way more powerful ASICs coming online, but once this Rust update comes in, it's going to lower the threshold by a factor of 10 to solo mine, and as I said, when it comes into 100, that will lower the factor by 100. And this means that pretty much all of these miners, at least ASIC ones, I'm not counting the FPGAs, would be able to solo mine very viably on the network at 10 blocks per second. But at 100 blocks, pretty much every miner could mine 1 block within a day and multiple blocks within a day. So this will actually eliminate this kind of chart that we're seeing with Bitcoin, where pools are holding a massive amount of the hash rate with only 0.8 unknown. And as you can see on Kaspa Coin, we have that same chart here, but it would eliminate it from going all into pools right now. And it would actually help to keep this unknown hash rate higher. Obviously there is pools, but pretty much all of these pools, as you can see, are hitting blocks. So 23 days ago, this is because they've gone offline. But those with average hash rates across the board have been hitting blocks. When you go to Bitcoin mining, it's more like the top 10 pools will hit a block within the day. So as you can see there, only these top pools are hitting blocks regularly. This one hit one once a day, 37 minutes ago, 28 hours ago. So you can kind of see how most of the pools at the top are really, really taking in all the blocks. But with Kaspa Coin, it's more spread out, more decentralized. And when the Rust update comes in, this will also further decentralize it. Hopefully we see something like a BitAxe that would actually facilitate smaller mining for Kaspa Coin on ASICs. And one day, you know, we could maybe feasibly solo mine on a BitAxe. Maybe it might be a BitAxe Hex with Kaspa ASIC chips put in there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on what you think about this, if it's a good idea to move over to Rust. I know there are some conversations about the Kaspa emission schedule, but maybe we'll get into that on a different video. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.